Hi students, in this video we are going to discuss about the agents of pollination or pollinating agents. So the agents which carry pollen grains from anther to stigma of same plant or of different plant is called the agents of pollination, and this we have already studied in our lower classes. And it has been categorized, the pollinating agents is categorized into two, that is biotic agents and abiotic agents. Biotic agents means living things such as insects, birds, bats, primates, arboreal rodents, reptiles, etc. And abiotic agents, that is a non-living, wind and water. So here we are going to discuss these things in details. That is abiotic agent, that is the wind. So pollination by wind is called anemophily. Pollination by wind is called anemophily, and more common abiotic agent, that is the wind. And wind pollinated flowers often have a single ovule in each ovary and numerous flowers packed into an inflorescence. That is, here you can see an example, that is a corn cob. The tassels are the stigma and the style which wave in wind to trap the pollen grains. And wind, it's quite common in grasses, that is grasses you can see. At least you might have seen in the Madaipara lots of grasses with these type of pollen grains, right? And you might have played with that also. And here you can see that ways for effective pollination. Ways in the sense certain characteristics will be there which of the plant, characteristics of a plant pollinated by wind. That means, for example, flowers produce large number of pollens. It will be helping or it will be helping for the effective pollination. And pollen grains are lightweight so that it can be easily carried away by the wind, and non-sticky, that also helps to carried away by the wind very easily. And they often possess well exposed stamen, and again they are large feathery stigma to trap the airborne pollen grains, so that it can easily trap the pollen grains. And abiotic agents, that is water, pollination by water is called hydrophily. Hydro means water. Okay, and it's rare and it's limited to 30 genera that mostly takes place in monocotyledons. And examples are Vallisneria, Hydrilla, Zoothera, etc. So these are some of the examples of this hydrophily. And water act as a medium. Water act as a medium for gamete transfer in lower plants. So water act as a medium for gamete transfer in lower plants such as moss, ferns, algae. And here you can see the explanation of Vallisneria example and how the pollinating agent helps in the pollination. That is, the female flowers reaches the surface of the water by a long stalk. Here you can see female flower. And the male flower and the male or the pollen grains are released on the surface of the water. And they are carried by water current. That means from here it is being released, and the male flower release the pollen grains and it will be carried to the female flower by the water current. That means water. And sea grasses means the female flowers remain submerged. It will be deep inside the water, and the pollen grains are long and ribbon like, and they are carried away by the water inside the water and reach the stigma. That means along with the water waves it will be moved and it will reach the stigma. That is how the pollination takes place there. And about here you can see the pollen grains of most of the water pollinated species have a mucilaginous covering to protect from wetting. It means that if the pollen grains get wet, it will get spoiled. So it is having an outer covering, a protective covering called mucilaginous covering. It will prevent it from wetting. And it is not necessary that all the aquatic plants should use hydrophily. That means it should pollinate by using water. No need. Like water hyacinth plants and water lily, here the flowers you can see it is outside the water, right? So in these cases, The pollinating agents or the pollination can take place either by entomophily or anemophily. Entomophily by means of insects, with the help of insects, or anemophily by the help of wind. As it is not inside the water as it is emerging above the water. And here you can see the abiotic agents, that is the animals. So you know majority of these examples: bees, butterflies, flies, beetles, etc. Yes, and pollination by insects, it is known as entomophily, and particularly bees is common in that. Okay, and here you can see the pictures given. And here you can see the features of insects pollinated flowers, characteristics. That means the flowers will be large, colorful, fragrant, and rich in nectar. That means which will help these type of insects, butterflies, to attract them. And nectar and pollen grains are floral rewards for pollination. That means as these insects and butterflies are helping for pollination, so they are getting in return nectar and pollen grains. So it's like a reward for pollination. And small flowers form inflorescences to make them visible. That means a bunch of inflorescences, a group of flowers which will be very visible for these type of insects. And flowers pollinated by flies and beetles secrete foul odors to attract these animals. And the pollen grains are generally sticky. And when animals comes in contact with the anthers and stigma, its body gets pollen grains. That means you know the body of these insects, the pollen grains will be sticking onto their body. And when it comes in contact with the stigma, it results in pollination. That means it will be carried to the stigma, and the pollen grains will be carried. It will be sticking onto their body, and then when it goes and sit in another flower, and if it's deposits in the stigma. And here you can see some abiotic agents like animals. In that itself, some plants provide safe places as a floral reward to lay eggs. It means in some species, floral rewards are in providing safe places to lay eggs. Okay, and such examples are, one is here Amorphophallus. It is the tallest flower, almost 6 feet. And a similar relationship exists between the species of moth here and the plant yucca plant. This relationship is very common, and it's very important also, the relationship between the moth and the yucca species, where mutually they are benefited. Both are benefited in this relation. Yes, as the moth and the plant, that is the life cycle is not complete without these both together. Yes, that means a moth species and a plant yucca cannot complete their life cycle without each other. The moth deposits its egg in the locule of the ovary, and the flower in turn gets pollinated by the moth, and the larva of the moth come out of the egg as the seed starts developing. So they both are benefited in this. So the relationship between the yucca plant and the moth, where both are benefited. That means a moth species and the plant yucca, they cannot complete their life cycle without each other, because the moth deposits its egg in the locule of the ovary. The flower gets pollinated by the moth. The larvae comes out of the egg, and as the seed starts developing. So that relationship, that is where both mutually benefited. And here you can see many insects consume pollen and nectar without bringing about pollination. Means what? See, they come and take some of the insects, they will take the nectars and they will have the pollen and all, but they will not help in pollination. So in such cases, they can be called as what? Pollen or nectar robbers. Why? Because they are taking all the things from them like pollen and nectar, but they are not helping in the pollination. So they are known as pollen and nectar robbers. So this is all about the pollinating agents. which is very easy to understand. So remaining will be discussed in the next video. Thank you.